Her name was Mrs. Anika Patel. She came into the bookstore every Thursday, right around 3 p.m. She always wore the same long coat, buttoned up neatly, no matter the season. Her hair was silver and tucked in a bun, and her shoes were polished like she cared where she walked. And every Thursday, she bought books. Lots of them. Hardcovers, paperbacks, thick and thin, fiction and nonfiction. She would spend over $200 at times. But here's the strange part. She never once asked for a recommendation. Never asked about sales. And never once did she bring a book back or mention if she liked one. I worked the register at the bookstore. My name's Jamie, and for almost 2 years, I watched her come and go like clockwork. One day I finally asked myself, who buys that many books, and never talks about any of them? Something about her quiet ways made me curious, and one day, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. It started out small. I'd peek at the titles she picked. They were always different. One week it'd be old American history. The next, children's picture books, then poetry, science, romance, even gardening. No pattern, no clear taste. Sometimes she'd buy 10 books, sometimes 20. She didn't browse like other people did either. She moved with purpose, like she already knew what she wanted. One afternoon, as she placed a tall stack on the counter, I said something casual. "You must really love to read." She smiled kindly, but didn't say much, just nodded. I noticed she didn't even open the books to glance inside. That's when the question really started to bug me. What is she doing with all these books? I kept watching. And each week, the question got louder in my mind. It was a rainy Thursday. She walked in, a little wetter than usual, but still smiling. Her scarf was soaked, and she shook out her umbrella politely, before heading straight to the travel section. 15 minutes later, she brought another big stack to the counter. Books about maps, foreign lands, adventure stories, even an old copy of Around the World, in 80 days. As I rang them up, I tried to keep my voice light. "Mrs. Patel, if you don't mind me asking, do you ever get the chance to read all these?" She looked surprised, not offended, just surprised. There was a long pause before she spoke. "No," she said softly. "I don't read them, not yet anyway." "Then, what do you do with them?" I asked. She smiled, but this time, it wasn't just polite, it was real. Kind, like I had asked the right question. "I collect them," she said. "For something special." That's when I knew. There was more to this story. If you've ever seen someone do something kind but quiet, ask why. You never know what story is hiding behind a simple smile. A week later, she came back, but this time, I was ready. When she placed her books down, I leaned in and asked, "Can I ask what you're collecting them for?" She looked around, then leaned in just a little. "I'm building a library," she said in a hushed voice. "Back in my home village." That stopped me cold. She explained in bits and pieces, never too much at once. She was born in a small village in India. No roads, no electricity for a long time, and no library. She had to walk miles to get a textbook when she was a girl. She remembered reading pages by candlelight while her mother cooked nearby. "When I moved here," she said, "I promised myself that if I ever had enough, I'd build the library. We never had." She paused, then added, "Not with cement, with books." I looked at her pile of books in a whole new way after that. They weren't just pages, they were bricks. The more I learned, the more I wanted to know. Over the next few weeks, she shared her story slowly, between book purchases. She had grown up poor, very poor, but her father believed in reading. "Books," he told her, "will take you further than a train ever could." So, she read everything she could get her hands on. She'd borrow from schools, neighbors, even dig through old boxes. And when she finally earned a scholarship to go to college in the city, she left, but never forgot where she came from. Years later, she moved to America for work. She became a teacher, got married, had kids. But the promise stayed. "One day," she said, "I'll go back and bring books with me." She wasn't rich, but she saved. Every month, she sent money to her cousin back home, to help build a simple room, 4 walls, a roof, some shelves, and every book she bought here would live there. For kids like her, suddenly, All those Thursdays felt bigger, more meaningful. They weren't shopping trips, they were missions. She had already sent 6 big boxes overseas. She packed them herself, carefully. Each book, wrapped in paper, to keep them dry. She included notes in some of them, in Hindi and English. This book brought me joy. I hope it brings you joy too. She showed me pictures once, of a small sunlit room, with wooden shelves lined with books. No computers, no desks, just mats on the floor, and bright red rugs. Kids sat in little groups, flipping pages, reading aloud. She called it Asha Library. Asha means hope. Mrs. Patel didn't tell many people. She said it wasn't about getting praise. I just want one child to pick up a book and imagine a bigger life. Her kids didn't even know the full story. They thought she was just a retired teacher who liked collecting books. But I knew. I wasn't just ringing up books anymore. I was watching someone build a future, one chapter at a time. One Thursday afternoon, Mrs. Patel walked into the bookstore, looking different, lighter, brighter, almost like she was glowing from the inside out. Her eyes sparkled behind her glasses, and she held her purse close to her chest, like it carried something special. She didn't head for the shelves, like usual. She walked straight to me. "It's open," she whispered, a little breathless. "The library. It's finally open." At first, I didn't understand. Then it hit me, the library. Her dream, her promise, her legacy. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, her hands trembling a little. She tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. The photo was simple, but beautiful. A small building stood in the warm sunlight, painted pale yellow, with red trim. Over the door was a hand-painted wooden sign that read, "Asha Library, a place to dream." In front of the building stood more than 24 children, smiling, barefoot, holding hands. Some clutched books to their chests like treasure. A few were already sitting on the ground, flipping through pages, their heads tilted down in focus. There were no decorations, no balloons or streamers, no newspaper cameras, or big speeches, just joy. Pure, honest joy. Mrs. Patel swiped to another picture. This time, the kids were sitting cross-legged, on a red rug inside the library, sunlight pouring in through open windows. Wooden shelves lined the walls, filled with the very same books I'd watched her buy, week after week. Then she said something that made my throat catch. "There's a little girl named Mina," she told me softly. "She opened a book yesterday and read her very first sentence out loud. Everyone clapped. She smiled so big." She paused, tears gathering in her eyes. "She told my cousin she wants to be a teacher now, just like I was." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, holding the register, blinking too fast. In that moment, I understood something I'd never thought about before. Those books we'd packed in boxes, those titles I'd rung up every Thursday, they weren't just paper and ink, they weren't just stories, they were wings. Wings for children like Mina, wings for a village that had waited too long, wings made by one quiet woman, with a kind heart and a steady soul. Sometimes the biggest changes in the world don't come from big speeches or fancy plans. They start in small corners, book by book, hand by hand, heart by heart. She didn't have a foundation named after her. She didn't go on television or give speeches at big events. She just came into our little bookstore every week, quiet and kind, with a list in her purse and a heart full of purpose. No one followed her with cameras. No one gave her awards. Some people didn't even notice her. But while the world rushed by, she was building something that would last, one book at a time, and not for herself. She built it for the children in her village, the ones who had never held a book before. For girls like Mina, who never dreamed they could be teachers, until they turned a page and saw a world bigger than their own. For boys who sat in the dirt, with open books in their laps, eyes wide, learning that their lives could be more than what they'd been told. I still remember the last thing she said to me, before she left town, that final Thursday. She placed a small stack of books on the counter, used ones, soft and worn with time, and looked up at me. "I'm going back," she said. "For good this time. The library needs someone to run it." I didn't say anything at first. My throat was too tight, so I just nodded. She smiled gently and added, "Books don't change the world all by themselves. People do, but books, they help people believe they can." And that was it. No goodbye party, no big send-off. She just slipped out the door, like she always did, the little bell above it, ringing softly behind her. But I still think about her, often. Sometimes I picture her sitting on a wooden stool, beneath a ceiling fan, in that village library, reading aloud, while children gather at her feet. Other times I wonder how many kids now dream bigger because of her. And every once in a while, someone in our store asks about her. They say, "Whatever happened to that nice woman who always bought books, but never seemed to read them?" And I smile, because I know the answer. She's not gone, she's just where she belongs, surrounded by stories, making more of them come true. There are people like Mrs. Patel all around us, quiet givers, gentle builders, kind hearts hiding in plain sight, doing the work no one sees, changing the world in slow, steady ways. Next time you meet someone who seems ordinary, ask their story. You never know, they might just be building something beautiful. One book, one child, one dream at a time.